Recapitulation, figure 20. Which key are we in? Kerry?
G major.
Everybody in G major?
No, the piano's not. I've got 6 sharps.
So 6 sharps would be...
B flat major? Not B flat, just B major. What is it? F
Is it
sharp?
F sharp?
6 sharps. Would it be B flat major?
It's not B
We just
flat.
do
I'm
it.
sorry, I said flat.
Okay, Kerry is offering us B major. Anybody
sharp.
want to better her offer?
F sharp major.
F sharp major, yes. Diane, Sarah. So you have what type of tonality here?
Bitonality. Oh.
Bitonality. Diane, Saran, once again. So orchestra is in G, which is the home key of the concerto, and piano is in F sharp major. Does that remind us of anything previously in the concerto?
So at the beginning of the movement 1, the right hand piano's playing G and the left hand piano's playing F sharp major 6.
Right at the very beginning, you have a similar idea on the piano, don't you? G major arpeggio in one hand and F sharp major in the other hand. So in some ways he kind of revisits that slightly here from what was right at the very start of the whole work, now at the end of the concerto. Gives it a little bit of a revisit. Okay, figure 20 then. Violins are playing the development semiquavers, so the semiquaver pattern that we originally saw in the bassoon and used in the developments, they're carrying on here in the first violins. Whilst the piano plays some thematic material seen previously in the movement. Gentlemen, what material is this? You can try and analyse it, or you can guess, because it's fairly obvious.
S2A.
So close, and yet so far. Nathan,
S2B.
so close, and yet so far. You're at the start of the recapitulation, so where would you start? S1A. Yes. S1A in the piano, whereas previously it was heard on the what?
Clarinet.
Originally it was on the clarinet, wasn't it? So S1A is in the piano and has some bits of harmony in it and cluster chords, whereas previously we heard it just on the clarinet. We just have the strings accompanying here, no woodwind or brass for the start of this recapitulation. So we're in S1A, and similar to first time round, we do have 3 short statements of S1A, getting shorter each time. Piano changes key at 220 and then finally lands into the G major at 224. So page 87, third bar along. Page 87, third bar along, piano lands in G major. How would you describe the writing for piano from that key change into G major up to figure 21?
Chromatic.
Pardon?
Chromatic.
We have some chromatic movement in there, and what is the piano playing? Triads, yeah. So you've got triads in the piano moving chromatically. This section from figure 20 in the exposition, in the recapitulation, is shorter than when it first appeared. In the original, so in the exposition at the start, this section was 20 bars longer than it is here. It's only 16 bars here. So development semiquavers carry on and get passed between violin 1 and violin 2. We have some chords in the lower strings, and before we know it, we're at figure 21, and we see which thematic material?
Is it Z in the woodwind?
No.
Three, two, one, or 1, 2, 3, whatever.
Thematic material in terms of
S1B.
S1B, yes it is. Dun, 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 dun. So the woodwind come in at figure 21, playing S1B whilst the piano plays some semiquavers underneath it. That carries on for some time till we have a perfect cadence at 22. This is page 89. Perfect cadence into 22, where we land with some new material. What might that material be called?
Was that the one where it was like S2, like B, C and D all appearing?
You do? You're going to pick a letter that comes first?
C.
No, A, oddly enough. So we start on S2A there. Ba-ba-da-ba-bum, ba-ba-da-ba-bum. So figure 22, S2A in the piano, harmonised this time because obviously last time it was on the brass. So figure 22, S2A in the piano, 2 bars later the trumpet answers with S2B. Yeah, so we've been through subject 1, we land here in subject 2, and en route we've omitted, he's not used the material that was figure 5 through to figure 7, that kind of piccolo, that transition stuff he doesn't use here. So it goes from subject 1 into subject 2, figure 22. So we've had S2A in the piano, S2B in the trumpet, and that dialogue carries on. We're over the page, bar 90, we have S2B in the woodwind leading us into 23. Yes, S2B in the woodwind, the bar before and 2 bars before 23. Underneath that, so the 2 bars before 23, we have a 4-chord pattern in the strings. Anybody remember what that 4-chord pattern was called? Yeah, it's pattern F, isn't it? D, 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 D. Whereas here it just goes D, 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 D. But it is an idea of that F pattern. So we're at figure 23, which is the top of page 90, and we get some new material here. Okay, it's a derivative of A1, but actually it's just generally an E-flat pattern. Okay, so figure 23, new material derived from A1. So we have 3 bars of that E-flat, bottom system then, clarinet plays a descending chromatic pattern, do, 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 which is jazzy in the style of subject 2, before we go up a minor third. So at 23 we were in E-flat major, we have this new material for 3 bars, then have 3 bars of jazzy stuff, and then you're on 262 and we're in F sharp minor, where we get that new material again, but this time minor third higher in F sharp minor. And again answered by that jazzy material. Okay so far? Cool. We have a run then into figure 24, and at 24 we go into the codetta. So this is our final section of the piece. So figure 24, codetta. Okay, so this is going to hurtle us towards the end. You can see the texture gets much thinner. There's just the piano and tiny bits of strings in here. From the original material, so figure 24 here through to 26 comes from figure 13 through to figure 14. That's useful if they do a compare this section from where the material previously appears. It's knowing, right, that comes back at figure 13. So figure 24 to 26 is derived from 13 through to 14. In the codetta, in the exposition, so the first time round this material is longer. It's shorter here. And just repeat some of the material there. So, Umchar accompaniment in the piano, very straightforward, and moving line from the piano in the semiquavers over the top. Very straightforward, gets more chromatic, goes more chromatic as we go through, especially around about 280, texture starts to thicken and you've got a roll there. And then 3 before 25, which is bar 93, we get some familiar material reappear. What's that material, Dan? Page 93 in the woodwind.
S2A?
Nope, that was the that was going to it was S1B. So S1B reappears in the woodwind there. Before at 25 we go right down to the bottom of the piano, and you'll have seen in your impression, those that have done impressionism for composition, the idea of extremes of pitch. So he goes right down to the bottom of the piano there, and he plays something, or he makes the piano player play something really fairly difficult. What is the piano playing there at figure 25?
It's a chromatic scale, isn't it? What was
Octaves.
Slightly sarcastic.
Ninths.
Ninths. The piano has got a descending pattern of ninths. Okay, which obviously you're used to octaves, so having to do that chromatically in ninths is really difficult for the piano player. Goes right the way up to the top of the piano, and then lands at figure 26 in the tonic. So it lands, goes through all that chromatic stuff and lands at 26 in the tonic. We then have E minor to G major chromatic appoggiaturas. So it's kind of is the chord, but he slides to it almost from the note before it. Yeah? So it's E minor and G major with appoggiatura neighbours, but obviously significantly faster. Woodwind then comes in imitating the piano, and we get to the last 4 bars and we hear what? 4 chords. F, bum, 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 and ends with a massive from the piano. He uses the very lowest note on the piano, which happens to be an A, not a G. But he does that with a nice solid root to finish. And we're done.